How do you do, fellow kids? Eric from WisDOT again, and we're going to keep going on our merry little way with having 3D models both in Civil 3D and in InfoWorks, existing data, and proposed. So we dealt with getting existing data into InfoWorks, pushing that data on over into Civil 3D. Today we're going the other way. So we're going to take the design data that we've done in Civil 3D and make it look like something that you might see in the real world in 3 dimensions and bring that data over into InfoWorks for whatever purposes that we need. So what I'm going for here again is something that's pretty quick and dirty, something that's accessible to pretty much any project team. And you put in another tool in your toolbox and you get to decide when and how to use it. We've already developed 3D models for design for WisDOT, so they're just sitting there. Let's do something more with them. Today I'm going to be using the AEC collection again, Civil 3D 2024 and InfoWorks 2024, and with the WisDOT package, I'll definitely be using a couple of tools and a lot of the styles and settings that we have in there today. So for those of you not familiar with WisDOT design deliverables, we have 3D and 2D data deliverables for most all situations. We've got a call out for BeamGuard each. They're not required. We still think it's really great workflow to do, but basically any sizable amount of earthwork, you're going to have 3D data. If you build those right, well, for design purposes for construction, what we're really focused at is the feature lines. And the design surfaces that we have out of design for construction should only be built from feature lines. And those are essentially point codes that are connected between the sample lines. And as I mentioned, those are the critical piece that construction wants, because they are going to be taking those feature lines and building the surfaces in their own software, usually surveying software, to do construction functions. But what this session is really going to be about is getting more value in the design phase out of those 3D data products. So these feature lines and the surfaces that you build out of them, great for construction, not for visualization. Basically, Civil 3D surfaces can only have one color / rendering material assigned to them at a given time. So you don't get any differentiation between any of the features. You don't get any differentiation in material. You can create lots and lots of little surfaces. It's really time consuming. Most people, most projects are not going to want to go that route. It is possible to display corridor links with different materials in the same corridor. And in 2022, we added a number of codes and styles and code set styles to make this workflow available to all projects. There are some limitations, but I hope to prove to you today that using these styles and building off of what you've already done for a design project for WisDOT, you can get some pretty quick, I got to put realistic in quotes because we don't have grass and flowers and everything, but we will make grass look green, we'll make concrete look white, and we'll make asphalt look black. So with that, let's press on. So what do you need to do this? So the key item that we added in 22 was we went to feature-based link codes. We've got feature-based point codes already, but our link codes used to be like top or datum. They weren't specific to the links. We changed that in 2022. Then you've got to use those to base that data onto a code set style. So those link codes. And then the key item that Civil 3D is going to want is render materials. Now, render materials can be a lot of different things. You can have texture patterns and all kinds of stuff. We added some that are pretty simplistic. They're, like I said, they're basically colors, but they're going to be very usable in Civil 3D. And I think there's some good reasons to keep them simplistic, even if you're going into an InfraWorks world. And then you apply those to fill styles that will be able to basically fill in between identical links from sample line to sample line. Now, if you want different styles applied to different areas, well, you just need to have different link codes. And with feature-based link codes now, we can assign various materials to them for whatever purposes that you need. Now, depending on what kind of a corridor you built or what subassemblies you use, you may need to change these point codes, link codes for whatever purposes you have. And I know a lot of people really don't feel comfortable doing that, but if there's one thing that I could stress to you if you're going to be doing design in Civil 3D is get accustomed to the point, link, and shape code palette that you have to work with and get used to customizing them. There's lots of things that require and a lot of benefits out of getting familiar with and getting used to customizing those depending on what the project is. So for instance, like say you had a project that had some asphalt on it and some concrete on it. You would want those to, if you were doing a realistic rendering of that project, you'd want them to look different. So to do that, you simply need to have different link codes in the different areas. So what this means here is that you could have the same lane subassembly and use the same logic, but in different regions of your different corridors, you might change the link codes to get different visual results. Okay, so what do you need to know to do these, use these, go forth and do good things with these? First of all, if you've got an existing corridor that was started prior to, well, we switched in mid-22, so I usually tell people if it's pre-2024, you're gonna need to get all the styles updated. That's in the Manage tab styles reference, delete anything that might be there and add the group design to it. And then this reset subassembly codes is what's going to add the feature-based link codes to your corridor. I will give you a warning if you have created custom point codes or whatever in your corridors, they will blow these away. So you can add these link codes manually. I'll show where that is at to know what to add. But that's if you haven't done any customization, that reset subassembly codes is going to be the fastest way to get the feature-based link codes on there. And then lastly, you're going to need the AutoCAD render materials. And we've got a little tool for importing both the code sets that are assigned with them and those materials. So real quick, I'm going to, well, I got a little bit more to get through. I'm just going to blow through this. So the code set styles that begin with color by are the new ones. By link is, as you'd imagine, different colors by links. And then color by top materials gives you different colors for each material. And the ones that end in rendered will display in 3D. The other ones are a top only. So if you've got the rendered view on and you've got a realistic view style, you'll see them. So let's take a quick look at what I'm talking about. Okay, so I've got a corridor here that is the leg coming into roundabout. Looks like, if you're accustomed to our corridors, looks very similar to maybe what you're used to in the past. I'm going to point out here the steps that I've already taken here under the Manage tab. There we go. Styles panel reference button. I've got 2024 template ref group design added, and that has given me I've got the general code set style on here. If I select it, I'll show you the other steps that you need to do. So I did assembly reset subassembly codes, and that's just select the assemblies and change them. And then under corridor, import code set styles to get those new code set styles and AutoCAD render materials. So now if I select my corridor here, right click, go to properties, I'm going to my codes. I've got general point and link codes on for right now. Here are the color buys that I've got going on. So I'm going to start with a color by link to show you that one. So I'm going to go straight to the rendered one so that I can go 3D with this. I'm going to click that on, say OK. And in top view now, you can see that I've got different, my lanes and my shoulders are the same here, but I've got different colors on my side slopes. It's not really apparent from the top view, but these are fill slopes over here with a recoverable and a non-recoverable, and then cut over here. I'm going to do a realistic view and go to a 3D orbit here and click drag my corridor so that you can see kind of down the roadway here. So this is the color by feature code. So every different feature-based link looks differently. I'm going to quick switch it while I'm like this rotated. I'm going to exit out and select my corridor, right-click properties, and go to top by materials rendered. And this is going to give me more of a kind of a realistic view. Okay, so I've got green for my side slopes, I've got a tan for a gravel shoulder, black for a paved shoulder, and then gray for my concrete. Now I'm going to go to a top view and zoom over to it. And I do want to point out here, so like you are going to see some breaks in it from transitioning to zero links to a link. And that's what we're seeing in these areas. So I've got, probably the easiest one to see is right here. This is that transition from fill area to cut, and I don't know exactly what's going on here, but it needs two links of identical features to pass between sample lines. Now, there are ways to address that. I'll talk about that a little later, but I do want to say, I mean, I spent like 2 minutes on it, and if I've got my corridor built pretty quickly, I've got something pretty reasonable, I think, for showing realistic geometry. One of the things that I want to point out is we do have a documentation page here that I want to bring up, and it goes through a lot of stuff because there's 3D views, there's top views, there's section views, so there's a lot of information tied into these code set styles. If you want to get really super awesome good at corridors, learn code set styles. You will not be sorry about that. But this is getting into the legends of particularly the links. So this is kind of the library of links available, description, a style, and a little tag on the side over here for what colors there are. I like to point this out to people mostly because if you get into using generic links and that aren't preloaded for some kind of purpose, knowing what color they're going to show up if you're rendering them, you can start saying, oh, I just got to add whatever link is that color to that subassembly, and that's going to get me the results that I want. Another thing that you need to know about any of the codes on a corridor, but any point or link or shape code can any subassembly can have any feature in that subassembly can have multiple codes assigned to it. So you can just throw in a comma and add the link, and whatever the point codes are doing for elevation offset labels in your sections or data to construction, we're just adding that feature on to get a little more functionality out of the corridor. Pretty easy to do. All right, so like I said, zero width will not display. You can either ignore them, you can add a sample line that will have a smaller width and basically shrink up those triangles. I do need to stress that if you've got kind of a mess of a corridor, and I don't even have anything specific that I can tell you, but if you've got really short areas and you've got loads of transitions and a lot of manual stuff in your corridor, that might show up in all kinds of spots, but it is definitely going to show up in the visualization stuff here too. So let's assume that you've done your normal corridor work. You've got your cross sections going, you've got some refinement surfaces built for top and datum. That's great. What should you do to kind of add this visualization step to your project? Well, here's my recommendations. So first off, I'd create a new file for visualization. I would not do all of this inside your kind of production corridor files. You're doing other things in there. You don't want to be messing with this. This is going to be something that is going to be hooked up to your corridor files, and that you're probably going to do kind of a publish process here. And I guess what I'm saying is these steps would be how to publish your corridors in a visualization mode for this purpose. You are going to want to set your county projections. That's mainly for getting it over into InfraWorks. Got to do that import code set styles with renders. Deref anything you need, so that's going to be derefing corridors. I can't remember when they added that, about 2018 through 20 sometime. But you can deref corridors, and that's super, super handy for this workflow here. So you're definitely going to want your corridors. You're probably going to want to, you do need to do whatever existing surface you're working off of. And if there's anything else, I don't know what it would be, but anything else that you want to publish into this model. And again, and XREFs is kind of the same. Maybe you want to throw in your topo, maybe proposed pavement. Your corridor really should be a three-dimensional representation of your proposed pavement, but maybe if, well, I haven't gotten to the point of doing paint is a pain in the butt. I don't have a good workflow for that. If I ever find one, figure one out, I will definitely bring it to the workshop, but basically XREF anything in that you think would be valuable there. And then set your code set styles to whatever you would like to display, and make sure the view style is realistic for 3D viewing. So let's go through those steps right now. So I've got this corridor, and I'm going to close it down, or let's close and save it. Go away. Yes. And I've already started up a file for visualization. I very called it Visol Corridor, and I threw it in the same folder as the rest of my corridors, okay? So that's about as fancy as I got. And I already set this one up a little bit. I'll go through bringing in, derefing the corridors, but I have a reason why I did it out here. As you can see, I've got some more corridors for some of the legs. This is not the full roundabout, but I just wanted to have some data. We're still working through this data set for training. So basically, you know, I've got my data shortcuts here assigned to this file. I'm going to go to my corridors, and I've already got the westbound. I'm going to grab the north. I'm going to create a reference. And this corridor style isn't getting into the code sets, so I really don't, that's fine, whatever. So there's my north leg, and let's grab some more. Yep. Okay, so just kind of going through the process of a multi-corridor workflow. I'm going to no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to grab all of these corridors here and going to try a right click. I don't know if this is going to work. We'll see if it works. Right click, corridor properties, boom shakalaka. All right, so I'm going to flip them all from general to, so the by links is there, but let's say I'm doing a top materials one here. So I'm going to do color by top materials, point and link codes rendered. Okay. And one of them went. Okay, didn't like the multi-select. Fine, be that way. Well, we'll onesie them. But not too terribly slow. So as you can imagine, if, you know, it kind of looks like a road. Oh my gosh. And it's not only good in top view, but in 3D as well. Now, that's all great. I hope I've got the existing surface. Yep, existing's in here. So this is my border for existing surface. And as you can see, I've got a XREF of my existing topo in here. So kind of like I might be able to show somebody who's not a Civil 3D user this, and I'd certainly be able to go to a 3D orbit, grab one of these, do a rotate, and change my style to a realistic. Remember, I'm not going to get those renders unless I do. And I've got some surfaces now. I can see that these are, these two legs are pretty decent fill. We're kind of scratch grading, not surprising, with just a intersection here, and we've got some cut area too. Now, if I go and if I display my surface, my existing surface, in anything that's going to be 3D, if you will. So let's go existing triangles. One of the things that's going to happen is whatever is literally on top, you're going to be able to see. So I'm okay on these legs where I've got my, I'm above existing ground, but when I've got a little bit of cut going on, it's not as pretty as I would like it to be. It all gets mashed up and stuff, and that's no bueno. So I'm going to show you a way to fix that here. So back to my agenda here, and here it is. So like I said, earthwork cut will cause problems in visualization, and this is the same thing. We can export corridor data to Google Earth and do similar things, but we get kind of the same ideas that and you can get around it with some kind of workarounds, just jack up the project a couple of feet, what have you. I'm going to show, we've got total control over existing and proposed data here. So we're going to clean it up as well as we can, and not too terribly difficult either. So we're going to promote exist surface into this viz corridor file. Now I need to cover, this is not a normal thing. We are going to use this particular exist surface just to get some drop surfaces under our corridors here. And you could bring this exist surface into visualization, but I must stress, this is, if you're still getting updates to your existing data, you should never, ever promote the surface in, because if any updates are sent to the main, if you will, existing surface, you're not going to see them. Okay, so but I'm going to show you real quick here why we need it for this particular process. We're going to create some top surfaces, and we're going to change the top to a drop, and we're simply going to do that by lowering the entire surface however much it takes, 5 feet, 10 feet, what have you, so that, and then we're going to paste that into our existing surface, and we're not going to have any more problems with visualization. So let's do that with this north leg here. I'm going to use one of our tools. You could go through this manually, but I'm gonna go about this kind of a quick and dirty way. I'm gonna go WisDOT design panel corridor, create surfaces. I'm gonna apply the default here and see if I can get a selection on my corridor that's underneath everything. Yep, okay, thank you much. And let's go down to that corridor. This is not exactly how I want it. It's the approach, it's the north approach properties. I don't need the datum, so I'm gonna select my datum surface and delete it. This top is just built off of my, my top point codes, and that's fine. But we're going to, oh, I should have stayed there. We're going to change this from I'm going to change this to a drop surface. This is a word I just made up, but we're literally just going to drop the surface. So it's top right now, and we're going to select it up here in surfaces and do the right-click select, and we're going to edit it, and we're going to raise lower, and I'm going to do a negative, nah, 5 would probably work. Let's try 5, -5. Okay, and I forgot to do the surface exist stuff, but let's do that right now. So let's right-click promote, again, particular to this file and need, and then we're going to right-click, select that one, and do a modify edit, and paste surface into it, and we're going to paste the north approach into it, and click OK. All right, now we've got, we basically punched down in the footprint of the corridor and did it that way. Now over here, I did a similar drop surface that I wanted to, in a different way. With if you don't have, if you don't want to make a top surface and drop it, and I thought this was going to be a different way, but this way would be better. I found out that it wasn't, but I just want to go through and explain what I did here. So I'm going to get this back to an existing border so I can see stuff. And what I did with this corridor, this is kind of the, we've been using the corridor, our region-based corridor shrink wrap tool. What I did here is I selected the daylight from both sides and created an automatic corridor feature line out of that. And then I did an offset here, like offset 1/2 foot in, down 10 feet. And then that made a surface, but then I had to wrap it right. So then it was offset, make it a 2D polyline, and create an outer clip or an outer boundary to tighten that up. I'm just going to add this other drop one to it, and I wanted to explain so that when we get to InfraWorks, you can judge whether it was worth that work or not. Because obviously, if I this, since it's a top surface and it was built, it's tight already. It doesn't need any, I don't have to apply any shrink wrapping to make it look good. So that's kind of nice. But I'm going to add this other drop here with that same select, and edit and paste the west leg in. And there we go. So in Civil 3D, what I have right now is all elevation correct and existing and proposed. So if I change this back over to triangles, I can choose any kind of triangles, but like you can see the proposed is showing up. Again, we've got those places where it is empty, and obviously these places. And here's one, like this is, you know, a sample. I'm not gonna mess with those, save some time here, but we can look at this in Civil. We can, you know, use it for visualizations here. We can kind of rotate around and actually look at the project in 3D. Grab it, you know, and if you've got if your topo is 3D on surface, you're going to see that. And of course, even if it's down at elevation 0 in a top view, you can turn off views, but you know, you can really get into seeing what is there. And my experience has been that when you have something like this, the conversation, whatever it is about, changes. Okay, whether it's talking with somebody who's reviewing the project, or a landowner, or a public official, this is just way more I get it than a whole bunch of cross-section sheets. Okay, and that's kind of the reason why we're doing it here. You can kind of see poking out here, there's that punch down, so that we could see that whole corridor there. Now let's get into InfraWorks. Is there anything I got to tell you before I get there? Oh, I forgot about that. Let's do that. You know, sometimes you may need to see something in 3D as well, other than the road, and I'm going to give you a way to do that. So let's go back to the top. So let's say we want to make sure that this house, we got a meeting with this homeowner. We want to see where exactly this house is at in relation to our proposed work. Let's get our, what am I at here? You just want, there we go. Give me back to borders. Nice. Okay, so I want to make a box to represent whatever this house is. I'm going to do that there's a couple of different ways that you could do this. I'm going to create a feature line, and then I'm going to create a wall surface out of it. And you're going to see what that looks like. So let's go to the Home tab, Create Design Feature Line, Create Feature Line from Objects. Let's see if I can select it. Give it the XREF option. Select from XREF. You betcha. Enter. Name. I'm going to call it a house. And was that saying there's fine? Fine. We're going to assign elevations. Okay. And we're going to assign from surface exists. We're going to skip intermediate breakpoints. Wham. So now we've got a feature line up at elevation. And I'm going to go to WisDOT Design, Design Panel Surfaces, Create Wall Surface. Pick it. Try and pick it, not a feature. Oh boy. All right, I finally got a feature line. I don't know what the heck was happening there, but we've got a feature line that we can create a wall surface from now. So let's do that. WisDOT Design, Design Panel Surfaces, Create Wall Surface, select the feature line, pick side to offset inside, and let's do a height of, I don't know, let's just call it 24 feet, 2-story, right? Something like that. And we'll call it House 1. Okay, there we go, escape. I'm just gonna do a quick 3D rotate so you see what's going on here. Pick there we go. And there's our little house. So this would be if we were doing a visibility check, intersection site design, something like that, this could be, restricting our view, but it's also, you can see it for, here's your house, talking to landowner. So that's there. Let's go to top view, and everything's looking good. And I'm just going to pick this guy and right click, surface properties, top triangles. That's fine. We'll leave it yellow. They'll have a yellow house. That'll be lovely. I wonder if I can get it to show up 2D wireframe. Let's go realistic. Ooh, no. Try it again. Realistic. Pick it. Okay, it is looking yellow. Don't know why it's not showing right now, but I'm comfortable with what it is. So this is looking good. Let's save it, get out of here. Yep. Okay, let's go to InfoWorks. So I've already got InfoWorks set up here with the area that I'm in. So if I go to my data sources, that'll take a little bit to get up, but I've got imagery and terrain, and you can see that we've got our footprint. Now we've done all the hard work. We've just got to add in the data. There's two different methods that we have to add that DWG in. One is we're going to get those drop surfaces in, and that's going to be through a Civil 3D, calling it a Civil 3D DWG. And if I navigate over to my projects, where did I put it? There we go, design, corridor, Visol. Now, InfoWorks knows a little bit about Civil 3D, but it doesn't know a ton. So there's going to be a lot of options that we can do here. Just so that you know, corridors, it's really not built for Civil 3D corridors. It's kind of assuming you sent a corridor to Civil 3D and you want to bring it back. We don't care about that or anything here. You could bring in surface, but I'm just going to bring in those drop surfaces. Okay, and I'm going to leave everything else off. So there's the drop on the north approach and on the west leg. And click OK. Now I got to configure these. So I'm going to right click and configure. And oh, it did bring in, sometimes it messes this up, but it did remember dodge. So that's good. So we'll close and refresh. And it'll say, you have surfaces that are uncategorized. I don't like that. Yeah, I want to fix that. So we'll go there. I'm going to cancel out of here and config the next one, close and refresh. It's going to give me the same one. But now I can get to both of those. So we're going to want to, we're saying these are ground surfaces, dude. So I'm going to drop those in a ground surface. We're going to make sure our big DEM is on the bottom, and we just simply light those up. Click OK. Grind, grind, grind. And not super visible, but if I do a little rotate, you can see I've got that same drop down punch out effect here. Okay, so that we won't get any this is a 5-foot deep and that's a 10-foot deep. You can kind of see the difference on the elevation there. So that's we're going to be able to literally lay our proposed in. And I'm going to do that with an AutoCAD DWG 3D objects. I'm going to pick the same file. So there's options for create 3D solids, blah, 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 in Civil 3D. If you are willing to build another file and set it up the way that you want it to look, and it's like, leave it alone, just bring it in, we can skip all that stuff. And that's why I kind of went this option here, is because it's fast. And once that file's built up, you can, refresh your corridors, open it up, synchronize, save, refresh, and do re-imports onto here, and be good to go. So it does take a little while for it to bring in, but now I've got it here, not configured, not surprising. So let's right-click, configure it. This is the loss of the coordinate system. So I'm going to call this, I go with city furniture. I think city furniture or buildings would work, but we're going to give it a type, and then we're going to set the coordinate system correctly so that it comes in, close and refresh, and bang. So there, you can absolutely see where your proposed work is opposed to the existing ground, and there's the person's house. And there is like city furniture and buildings and all kinds of stuff in trees, in InfraWorks, and that stuff might be good. But for houses, I kind of like the simpler way, because the models that they have for that stuff in InfraWorks are like really detailed, and you can get people saying, well, my roof isn't that color, or I don't have that bump out on my house, and I prefer to just go like, you're the yellow block, you're the purple block, whatever it might be. And then people are like, oh, okay, I get it now. I kind of like the kind of simplistic crayon visuals, if you will, just because it's like, okay, this isn't, I'm not watching a movie here. This is really for, things could change a little bit. But as you can see here, so this is this is that drop surface that went in as, and this is what doing all that work with offsets and steps and blah, blah, blah looks like too. They look about the same to me. I don't know if you like one better than the other, but we got through that. I had to talk about half an hour to explain things to you, but with all that stuff set up, if you've got the InfraWorks project all ready to go, this is probably a half hour, maybe an hour tops, of bringing it in. And again, you can see where everything is at. I think this farm building is actually even pretty close to where yeah, holy cow, that is like right on the footprint. I will argue this did not take me too much time. And anybody who spends the time to learn this could be doing this and, really, really impressing the heck out of a project manager, supervisor, or, local official. I think that is about it. Again, no link areas will not display. You can decide how fancy you want to get with that. I will say design surfaces from feature lines and gradings need to be rendered separately because, again, surfaces can only have one render applied to them. And last but not least, when you get that big promotion from impressing the heck out of us, everybody, feel free to buy your friends and methods around the beverages. Hope you liked it. Hope you learned something. Take care.